The Q101 Morning Crew.
On Q101.
I've been telling you we have a big announcement this morning we want to get to. Really exciting stuff here at Q101. But first, let's get you that code again. So we did this up at 7 o'clock, your chance to see the Foo Fighters in San Diego. So all you got to do is text BIG, as in Big Me, the Foo Fighters song. So just BIG, B-I-G, to 312-591-8300. That's your chance to qualify for the trip in San Diego. You get a $100 Visa gift card just for qualifying. Our great friends at Bettenhausen Automotive help make this happen. This is wild. And remember, it's been going on for a couple weeks, this GTFO. If you've already texted in, don't hesitate. Just text in and we'll work it out if you're eligible or not down the road. If you've already won the $100 gift card or qualified, just text in anyway. We'll figure it out for you and get you to San Diego for the Foo Fighters. So now, right here with Brian and Kenzie on Q101. Pretty cool stuff going on here. Now, you have absolutely, we know this, man. You have downloaded the Brian and Kenzie podcast. You subscribe to it. What we're doing is, because it's the success of that already, of the downloads and you guys making that a regular part of your day, if you missed parts of the show, you go back and you listen to other parts of the show, the Brian and Kenzie podcast at Q101.com and anywhere you get your podcast. This has launched us now into a new world where we're having, on Q101.com, more podcasts, and we're calling it Q101 Podcasts. A very good name. A very appropriate name.
Very hard to figure out.
Not too hard to figure out. So we're launching a podcasting venture with 4 new and exclusive shows. And obviously, this one right here, the Brian and Kenzie podcast, that gets you going all day long and anytime you want on demand. This show, that's what it is in case you've never done it. It's this entire show broken down by Case the Producer in 4 segments on your feed. So if you missed something, let's say you missed in trivia right this time, you know to go to the 7 o'clock hour one. It's not the entire show in one file or one download. It's 4 separate downloads to make it easier for you to find stuff.
And for people, I think the average Chicagoan commute is about 20 minutes. So maybe you're in your car right now. You know Brian and Kenzie from 7:10 to 7:30 or 7:30 to 8 o'clock when you get to the office. We do this live 4 hours a day. There's parts of the show you might not even know about, and that is why if you like us during that little time you're in your car, get more of us. Get the Brian and Kenzie podcast. It's available Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Q101.com. Type in Brian and Kenzie. You will find it.
Really easy.
Also, I was just checking it out yesterday because we had the meeting and stuff.
Yep.
And it's always interesting to see what Case decides to name the segments. Mm-hmm. And I saw Kenzie accused of being stripper is one of the names. Was not run past me.
If you want to hear that story, Brian and Kenzie podcast.
See what he does there, Kenzie, is very TMZ, Entertainment Tonight type tease
no, I got it.
headlines.
Thank you for that. No, I got it.
So you see what we do here, right?
But I'll tell you what, I don't remember talking about that, so I'm going to go back to the podcast today and see what the hell goes on there. These accusations of my girl Kenzie.
Oh, God.
Very scary. So make sure you subscribe so it just pops up on your feed every day, and like and share and review. We love you writing a review. We read the reviews, and the stars there, whatever platform you're on, if it's Spotify, if it's Apple Podcasts, whatever else. There's like 15 other ways to listen to podcasts. So however you do it, do that. And also what we're launching, because our podcast has already been going, so that's already ongoing. These are new ones now. A Case for Case the Producer. And, he's our guy that goes pretty much out every night to every concert that you can't get to and then tells you about music in a really exclusive way of introducing bands to you that you may not have heard of.
Well, yes. I mean, I've worked here for a number of years, and I see this trend whenever, the Lollapalooza lineup comes out or the Riot Fest lineup comes out, or even maybe sometimes, it's Twisted Christmas or Picnic, where we're inundated with comments of, hey, headliners look great, but am I old? Am I out of touch? Who are these other bands? And it's important to me that nobody is ever feeling like that. And if you want to branch out and find new music, that I can be your trusted source to do so. Because good music didn't stop being produced when MTV stopped playing videos or when you stopped going out multiple times a week. There are still exciting bands that you should be aware of. And A Case for, which is now available not only on Q101's YouTube channel, but again, wherever podcasts are found, is sit-down interviews with bands like Bridget Calls Me Baby, who you've heard on Q101, or a band like Drain, who is maybe a little bit heavier than what we normally hear from 6 to 10 a.m. on Q101 or even throughout the day. But these guys sold out the Metro in a second the last time they were there. They're one of Post Malone's favorite bands, even though they're a metal band. And these are the next generation. If you want to be hip, if you want to get in on the ground floor of the bands that I won't shut up about. A Case 4 is that platform. Right now, if you go to your podcast provider, there's interviews with Bridget Calls Me Baby, there's interviews with the band Drain that I just mentioned, and there's an interview with Violent J of the Insane Clown Posse that I would highly, highly recommend listening to.
And by the way, at Riot Fest, that was Kenzie's #1 to make sure she saw him.
I know. And I like, listen, you didn't need to make a case for them. Let's be honest. They were your star. Sometimes Case is like, listen, I'm swamped this weekend because I have 3 garages I have to visit to check out new bands.
Yeah, remember, Fall Out Boy started in a garage and Wilmette.
That's right.
And Case was there.
And Case was there.
But here's a little clip of Kenzie's favorite band, Insane Clown Posse, from Riot Fest that Case is talking about that will be on his podcast here and there.
Chicago, is that a town that treats you well?
Yeah.
Any memories jump to mind when you think, oh, man, we were in Chicago this one time and this happened?
Oh, man. One time, Shaggy passed out on stage and couldn't be revived for some reason. And they shut the curtain, and his feet were sticking out on the other end of the curtain still. You know what I'm saying? And the crowd was like, what's happening? What's happening? And the scary thing was we were backstage yelling that even louder. What's happening? It was terrifying. But other than that, we got the normal, regular, standard chaos and anarchy we always have everywhere. You know, it's been a great town for us. Extra supportive, extra love, you know?
Good.
It's very sad we never found out what really happened to Shaggy 2 Dope on that one. But you have to go to the podcast to find out the more of the story. That's what we're going to be doing here.
That's right. So that interview, the video is on Q101's YouTube channel. You can just type in a Case 4 Violent J. But again, all podcast providers, a Case 4 is now live.
So Q101 Podcast launching this new venture, and we have the Brian and Kenzie podcast, a Case 4, and very special here, Kenzie will have an exclusive podcast with her husband, the Romance Podcast, with Kenzie and Roman. Huh? So, and joined right now is Kenzie with her husband, Roman, who you may be very familiar with in his radio days and his TV days, and them together on TV doing all that stuff.
Good morning. How you guys doing?
What's up, my man here? My dude.
Yeah, I feel like I never seen. Well, I saw you yesterday, but besides that, I feel like I never see you.
That was a fun little baby shower I planned.
Yeah, thank you, by the way. That was very, very nice of you. That was really cool. And I told Kenzie, because you got her like Amazon gift card, it has to go towards the baby, not towards her like wardrobe.
Well, you know what? We'll never be able to verify unless I can track the code maybe and see what you bought.
I can verify, though. I'll tell you guys.
What if it's like a purse to put the baby in?
A purse?
That's illegal, I think.
I don't think you're supposed to do that.
Yeah, no.
Kenzie's due date is Monday. We'll see what happens as we go along here. So going through a big journey here with Kenzie and Roman. But tell us what's your podcast, the Romance Podcast. See the little tie-in with their name there, Roman, Romance?
Yeah,
I love it.
because you can't spell romance without Roman.
It's 40 every time.
So we actually are going to give birth next week to a baby, but we gave birth to a podcast this week. Very, very excited about it. The Romance Podcast is kind of like a behind-the-scenes look of not just our relationship, but other relationships out there, celebrities, local, national, because every relationship starts somewhere, and it's got its own unique story, and it's not perfect. That's the thing. You go on Instagram, and you go on social media, and every relationship is, oh, it's perfect. No, me and Kenzie, we fight. We fight a lot.
No.
and honestly, we don't hold anything back. So we'll kind of dissect those fights. We'll kind of analyze those arguments, and we'll kind of come to a resolution live on that podcast. So it's definitely a big passion project for us. We're very excited about it. But again, whether you're single, married, divorced, custody battles, we talk about it all. And there's something for everybody in this podcast, right, babe?
No, it's true. And it's cool because not only are we going to have celebrities on that talk about their relationships, so we have some really big ones lined up that we're excited about, again, local and national. We're also going to have, like, love astrologists on, love therapists on, so they can take those fights and be like, that's so normal. That's this. Trust me, this podcast is going to make you feel better about yourself because you're going to realize when your husband pisses you off, like, oh, they're just all doing that. So It's very nice.
See, how can you fight with Kenzie? She's a peach.
Oh, dude, I mean,
What?
she is a peach, 1,000%, but how can you fight with her? Like, she's very opinionated, and she's very vocal, and we talk about everything in our relationship, the good and the bad, on our podcast.
Right on.
I just don't know what you're hinting at all.
No, nothing at all. Nothing at all. So that's the Romance Podcast with Kenzie and Roman. So stoked to add that to the Q101 Podcast shell, but we're not done. So you got Brian and Kenzie Podcast, the Case 4, Romance Podcast with Kenzie and Roman. And this is really exciting, bringing back an old friend to me and to you. James Van Osdale is bringing his Car Con Carne podcast, the return of JVO. We didn't name himself that. He calls himself James Van Osdale, but everybody else called him JVO. And here he is on the phone with us right now. Welcome in, James Van Osdale. I'm so stoked for this.
It's so great to talk to you, but I have to say, Brian, the most optimistic thing I'll hear all day is what Case said, that the average Chicago commute is 20 minutes.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Kenzie drives in from Elgin. I think it's a good, hour and 20 minutes some mornings.
Yeah, something like that. A little ditty right there.
You have time to blast through the entire network every time you're going downtown.
That's right. That's right.
Totally fair. So, JVO, tell people, obviously people know you from being on the air here for many years at Q101 and the local shows and your tie-in with local bands. But what is Car Con Carne to someone that's never heard it?
I'm so glad you asked, Brian. Car Con Carne is a podcast I've done for roughly 10 years, and I do it 90% of the time in my parked car. And it's what we call a hyper-local podcast. I record it in and around the city and suburbs, outside local restaurants, brew pubs, events. And the focus is mostly on music. And you mentioned local bands, coming off of Local 101 all those years. I talk to a ton of independent Chicago bands. That's what I'm most passionate about. So I record once or twice a week, probably an average of 6 episodes a month. And I'm just in and around the city and suburbs recording, talking to people who I think are interesting. And as a result, I think you'll think are interesting too.
And, I've been on this podcast when I first returned the Q101 over 5 years ago, where me and James had to attempt to eat a 60-ounce tomahawk steak in his car with a baked potato.
It was a good shot.
And
we
sides.
gave it a really good shot.
And it was delicious. That was Chicago Culinary Kitchen up in Palatine. Those great people up there. And it's a blast in how you go to locations and just bring something new into. It's very funny in the car. And you did this before, what's his name, the late night guy. What was his name?
Oh, James Corden?
James Corden. You did that before him.
That no name, James Corden.
That's right. That Jamoke. Yeah. You did that way before him in the car. So we're really excited that that's coming on, James, in the podcast network, because you have been doing it for 10 years.
Yeah, I think the secret to being successful as a podcaster is just not stopping. I think a lot of people give up. I think that tenacity and just mindset of, I'm going to keep this going, and that's what I've done for a decade.
It's awesome. Love having you back, James.
Oh, it's so good to be back at Q101.
Yes. Thank you, man. And we'll hear more from all these podcasts. Just so you know, just go to Q101.com, the Q101 podcasts, launching it today. And there'll be more as it goes along, and we'll have more information about all these shows, too. Each time something new happens with them. But Q101.com and anywhere you get your podcast, the Brian and Kenzie podcast, A Case For, the Romance Podcast with Kenzie and Roman, and Car Con Carne.
The Q101 Morning Crew.
On Q101.